Part 1. The mirror you cannot trust you. Wake each day believing that what you see is what is there. But your eyes lie, and your mind lies louder. Confirmation bias coils itself around every thought you have ever trusted. You seek only the things that agree with you, and you think you are finding truth. But it is just the echo of yourself, shouting back through history, through culture, through the fragile tunnels of your neurons. Consider the ancient Stoics, whispering about the examined life, warning that perception itself is a fragile net. All look to Francis Bacon, centuries ago, naming these mental idols illusions of the tribe, illusions of the cave that shape your every judgment. You tell yourself you are rational, but even that thought is chosen because it feels good, not because it is true. Think of the Asch conformity experiments, those grey rooms where people pointed to the wrong line, knowing it was wrong because everyone else did. And you imagine you would be different, don't you? You imagine yourself standing firm. But when the crowd surrounds you and silence tightens your throat, your mind becomes theirs. History is a mirror of bias. The Salem witch trials, fueled by confirmation, where every flickering shadow proved guilt. The phrenologists, carving skulls into maps of imagined destiny, nodding as the evidence bent perfectly to their theories. And now you, centuries later, scrolling through your own curated feed, sure that reality is what it appears to be because it agrees with you. Think of cognitive dissonance, Leon Festinger, watching cult members as their prophecy failed, and still they believed. The dissonance burns, and to soothe it, the mind twists until wrong feels holy. How many times have you done the same in your own quiet ways, reshaping memories, rewriting motives, erasing guilt? Now lie there, feel the darkness hum. Every thought you reach for, ask yourself, do you hold it, or does it hold you? And if every belief you have ever had was just a bias feeding itself, twisting itself, becoming itself, then what exactly is left of you at all? Part 2. The labyrinth of anchors you reach for certainty like a drowning mind reaching for driftwood. But the first number you hear, the first story you're told, becomes an anchor heavy, invisible, pulling you down. This is anchoring bias, and it haunts every judgment you make. Think of Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, those architects of modern psychology, spinning the wheel of fortune in their experiments. A meaningless spin, a random number, and yet when asked to estimate the percentage of African nations in the UN mines, latched on to the arbitrary digit, as though it carried hidden truth. You do it too. You hear a price, a date, a single word, and everything afterward bends around it like light around a star. Remember the Nuremberg rallies, the propaganda machines setting numbers, quotas, expectations, anchoring an entire nation in a fever dream of falsehoods. And no matter how monstrous the second thought, it was chained to the first, accepted without question. You are no different, though you pretend otherwise. Look deeper into history's darker rooms, ancient merchants, inflating values to fix the mind, religious leaders whispering absolutes until they root in the skull, anchors everywhere. You might believe you float freely in thought, but your freedom was clipped by the first figure whispered in your ear. The physicist's paradox of initial conditions, the way a single measurement at the start of a chaotic system dictates the fate of everything that follows. You are that system, aren't you? A chaos of thought, pretending at clarity, but dragged always back to the first arbitrary stone you tied to yourself. And what of hindsight? You anchor even to your own rewritten past. You think you always knew that outcomes were inevitable. But you didn't. You couldn't. You anchor memory to the present and erase what doesn't fit. You stand at the end of a maze you never truly navigated and convinced yourself you saw the path from the start. Close your eyes. Let the drift come. But ask yourself, before you sink too far, if every decision you've ever made was warped by the first number, the first whisper, the first shadow, then were you ever making decisions at all? Part 3. The blind spot you worship. Think you see the whole picture, don't you? You think your mind is a lantern flooding the dark with light, but the spotlight effect is crueler than that. It blinds you while you believe you are seeing. Consider the stage of your own life. Every moment you believe others are watching, judging, measuring your every flaw. But most eyes slide right past you. They are trapped in their own spotlights, their own private distortions. Thomas Gilovich named it, mapped it, proved it. You live in a world where each person walks beneath their own beam, convinced everyone else is staring. And yet there is another blindness coiled deeper. The Dunning-Kruger effect. David Dunning and Justin Kruger watched as the incompetent swelled with confidence and the competent drowned in doubt. Your mind, flawed and limited, builds a temple around itself. When you know little, you feel certain. When you know more, you see the void. And you never, ever stop to ask how far down the ignorance really goes. Think of the ancient philosophers, Socrates whispering, "I know that I know nothing," and realizing even that might be false. Think of the medieval astronomers charting the heavens, certain the earth was the center of all things. Their instruments told them lies, and they worshipped those lies as truth. Now drift back to the Milgram experiment's electric shocks. Authority figures, obedient hands pressing switches, even as screams tore through the room. Did those hands not believe they were right? Did those minds not cling to the illusion that someone else knew better? And when you look at your own life, how many times have you followed orders simply because they sounded certain? Blind spots are not gaps. They are abysses that feed on your arrogance. When you look at your own reflection, you are seeing only what you are capable of seeing, not what is truly there. So lie there, your heart slow, your breath thin, and ask yourself if every certainty you hold is just the brightest part of your own blindness. What monstrous shapes are moving in the dark just beyond your sight? Part 4. The memory that was never yours. You close your eyes and you think you remember. But memory is not a photograph. It is a knife, carving and recarving. And every time you recall a moment, you are rewriting, it altering, it destroying what once was. Elizabeth Loftus proved it in her experiments. Witnesses who swore to what they saw, then bent like reeds when a single false word was slipped into their minds. A car didn't stop, it smashed, and suddenly glass that never existed sparkled in their recollections. You are no different. Your own past is a museum of forgeries you yourself have painted. Think of the Mandela effect, crowds remembering events that never occurred, convinced that a logo, a line in a film, a headline was once different. Millions of minds agreeing on a lie, building history from smoke. You think you are immune. You are not. Your childhood is laced with details that never happened. Faces you remember are strangers wearing masks your brain designed. Consider the case of Clive Waring, the man trapped in seconds, his memory resetting like a dying clock, yet convinced in every fleeting instant that he has just awakened for the first time. Is that not what you do every day when you insist you know yourself? Even your body conspires against you. Neuroscience shows how the hippocampus and amygdala dance in fire, burning emotion into memory, warping it. Trauma imprints, but not with accuracy only, with intensity. You cling to these scars as proof of who you are, not knowing how false they are, how bent and twisted their roots have become. Think of historical records, biased scribes, selective archives, victors erasing the voices of the conquered, and yet you trust your private archives, scrawled on fragile neurons. As though they are sacred scripture, you think you are made of memories. You think your past is solid ground beneath your feet, but feel it now as you lie still in the dark. It is quicksand, and it is swallowing you. So tell me, whisper it in the hollow between your breaths. If every memory you carry is a fiction you've rewritten 1,000 times, then who, exactly, do you believe you've been all along? Part 5. The choice that was never free. You tell yourself you choose. You tell yourself each decision unfolds from some deep, unshakable core of you. But there is no core. There is only the machinery. Benjamin Libet's experiments shattered the illusion. Electrodes resting on the skull, signals flaring in the brain before the subject even felt the decision arise. The readiness potential milliseconds of betrayal, your own neurons moving long before your conscious mind declares the choice. You were late to your own life. Think of B.F. Skinner in his dim laboratories, pigeons pecking levers, trapped in a loop of reinforcement and reward. They believed they were choosing. They were not. And you, with your rituals and habits, your shopping lists and quiet self-justifications, are you any different? Watch the hands of history. Karl Marx writing of false consciousness, of men thinking themselves free while their thoughts are shackled by systems they cannot see. Or the Stoics whispering that freedom is in your mind, an irony. Given what modern neuroscience now whispers back, the mind itself is a chain you can't unfasten. You recoil from this thought, don't you? You want to believe that when you said yes or no, when you stayed or left, when you whispered or stayed silent, you chose. But what about the priming experiments, John Bargh, showing that a word, a fleeting image, could tilt your behavior without your knowing? What about the hidden anchors of childhood, the scripts written by parents, teachers, strangers long dead? Your hands move, and you call it will. But if the future is written by physics, by particles colliding in cold obedience to laws older than time, then what room is left for you? The arrow of time does not bend for your choices. Lie still, breathe slower, feel the weight of your own body as if it were no longer yours, and ask yourself, with the last whisper of your dwindling certainty, if every decision you ever made was decided before you even knew you were deciding, then who, exactly, is living your life right now? Part 6. The self that isn't there. You whisper your own name in the dark, as though it anchors you. But who is that name for? Who is the you keep trying to find? David Hume stared into his own mind and found only a bundle of perceptions, fragments with no center, no self that endures. Just flickers, sensations, ideas, none of them you. And yet, you spend a lifetime worshipping the illusion that they weave into something solid. Thomas Metzinger, a modern philosopher of mind, speaks of the self-modal, the brain's trick, projecting an image of a you where there is only process, a hallucination so convincing you mistake it for being. You are not what you think you are. You are the thinking itself, recursive, tearing through layers, never touching ground. Split brain experiments carved the illusion open. Two hemispheres, two minds housed in one skull, each unaware of the other's secret whisperings. When one hand moved, the other invented reasons, patching over the split with comforting lies. And you think your unity is real? You think the voice narrating your life is true? Look back through history's jagged mirror. The ship of Theseus, replace every plank, every nail, every thread when is it no longer the ship it once was? And when every cell in your body has turned over, when your memories have rewritten themselves into fiction, when your desires have been bent by forces you cannot name, when were you ever the same person you claimed to be? Consider the uncanny case of Phineas Gage, the man whose brain met iron and survived, except the he who emerged was not the he who entered. Personality, morality, identity, all rearranged by a spike of steel. If your mind can be rewritten by an inch of metal, what does that say about the you clutch so tightly? You call it self. You pray to it in every choice, every memory, every secret thought. But as you lie there, drifting between dreams and the echoing dark, ask yourself if the self is only a story your brain tells itself over and over until it forgets it's a story. Then who exactly is listening to me right now? Part 7. The time that devours itself. You think of time as a river, smooth, relentless, carrying you from one shore to another. But time is not gentle. Time is a blade, carving you apart as you watch. Einstein shattered the old clockwork universe. There is no single now. Time bends, stretches, collapses under gravity. What you call a moment is not universal. What you think is happening right now may already be past or future to someone else, somewhere else. And yet you live as if the seconds were firm, as if they belong to you. Consider the block universe, a theory whispered by physicists and philosophers. The past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, a frozen architecture through which your consciousness crawls, believing in motion. But if every moment already is, then your life is not unfolding, it is already done. Your birth and your death pressed together, written in the same page. And then the paradoxes creep in like shadows. Zeno with his arrow that never moves, each half of a distance cut again and again into infinity, so that motion itself becomes impossible. Yet you walk, you breathe, you age, pretending the math does not matter. Think of the memento of Pompeii, Bodies, frozen mid-run, mid-scream, in the ash, their final moments eternal. Were they moving, or have they always been still? And what of you if your mind revisits memories endlessly? Are you not trapped there, forever repeating what you think you left behind? Neuroscientists whisper of time perception, how adrenaline stretches a second into a lifetime, how monotony erases hours into nothing. You think you live one life, but you are living 1,000 fractured versions, some too long, some vanishing before you even notice. And as you lie there now, wrapped in the dark, your body drifting through another night that will vanish before you can grasp it, ask yourself this: if time is not a river but an eternal cage, every second already written, already dead, then why do you keep pretending you are moving at all? Part 8. The others, who are only shadows, you think you know them. You think the people who fill your life are solid, knowable, whole. But they are mirrors, fractured and warped, and every time you look, you only see yourself reflected back. Consider the theory of mind, the fragile scaffolding by which you imagine what another feels, thinks, plans. You build entire universes out of the smallest signals, a glance, a hesitation, a word. But psychologists like Simon Baron-Cohen show how often we fail, how often we attribute thoughts that are not there, how often we strip away the thoughts, that our look at history's dark rooms again, the bystander effect, documented by Dali and Latane. After Kitty Genovese's murder in 1964, 38 neighbors saw or heard, and none acted, not because they were evil, but because they each thought someone else would. You think you know how you'd react, but you would stand there too, wouldn't you? Frozen by the weight of others. Think of Solomon Asch again, those stark rooms, where people pointed to the wrong line, and you, even you, would feel the pull to agree. Or Stanley Milgram's obedient subjects, pressing buttons to deliver pain because an authority said so, glancing at others for cues, erasing the screaming from their conscience, and, in intimate moments, your family, your lovers, your friends, how much of what you know is invention. The halo effect makes the beautiful seem good, the confident seem wise. You stitch their identities from your own needs, your own biases, and never see the seams. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre warn that hell is other people, not because they harm you, but because they see you through eyes you can never access, never control. You are an object to them, and you will never know what shape that object takes in their minds. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of all those unseen gazers flickering like cold stars around you, and ask yourself, as the dark folds deeper around, your thoughts, if you can never truly know another and they can never truly know you, then who is it you've been loving, fearing, following, and trusting all this time? Part 9. The truth that collapses when touched. You believe in truth, don't you? A hard, cold core you can reach if you dig deep enough. But every time you reach, it dissolves in your hands. Look to quantum mechanics, where particles are both waves, and points neither and both, until you look, and by looking, you destroy what they were. The observer effect, the double-slit experiment, where light itself refuses to choose a path until your gaze forces it. You think observation reveals reality, but it only carves a scar through it. In psychology, the Heisenberg principle echoes. In softer rooms, asking people about their behavior changes their behavior. Measuring a thing warps the thing. Even your own introspection, that desperate attempt to understand yourself, reshapes you into something else as you watch. History is written the same way. A document unearthed, a testimony given, and suddenly, the past is rewritten in ink that was never there. The Rosenthal effect teaches expectations altering their students' futures without either knowing why. Truth bending beneath the weight of belief. Karl Popper whispered that knowledge grows by falsification, not confirmation, that you never truly prove anything, you only fail to disprove it for now. But that means every fact you hold dear is perched on crumbling ground, waiting for the next question to erase it. Even your own memories of this day are shifting as you lie here. Neural pathways strengthening one story, weakening another. By recalling them, you corrupt them. By seeking truth, you salt the earth. You imagine reality as something solid. But imagine Schrödinger's cat, both alive and dead, in a box you cannot open. Imagine every decision in your life branching endlessly, none of them entirely real, until you slice the possibilities down with a choice you did not truly choose. Now feel the air, heavy and still, pressing down on you in the dark, and whisper to yourself, as the weight of unknowing coils around you, if every act of looking destroys the truth you long to see, then what truth has ever truly existed for you at all? Part 10. The pattern that isn't there. You ache for patterns. You claw at chaos, forcing it into shapes, because your mind cannot tolerate the void. But the void is all there is, and the shapes are lies. Consider apophenia, the human tendency to see connections where none exist. Carl Jung spoke of it in Whispers of Synchronicity, the way events seem linked, as if the universe were winking at you. But in the cold ledger of science, these are coincidences dressed as meaning, random noise you worship as signal. Look at the gambler's fallacy. Red hits 3 times, so black must come next. You see the pattern, you swear it is there, but the roulette wheel spins in cruel indifference. And yet you build your life on this fallacy: relationships, careers, choices stacking randomness into fragile towers you call fate. Think of the Rorschach test, ink blots bleeding on paper, and the desperate narratives patients pour into them. Monsters, mothers, wounds. You do the same with the sky, with history, with your own thoughts. You draw constellations across the dark and name them gods. But the stars never formed those lines. You did, in history. False patterns lead to atrocities. The witch hunts women, accused not by evidence, but by the shape of their neighbors' suspicions. McCarthyism, careers and lives crushed under imagined conspiracies. Each time, people were certain the pattern was real. Each time, they were wrong. Even the brain itself conspires. The default mode network stitching disparate memories into a single, seamless story. A narrative illusion. You think your life makes sense because it must, because it feels unbearable that it might not. Lie still now, listening to your own breath, counting heartbeats like steps in a corridor you cannot see. And ask yourself, as the shadows writhe into shapes you half recognize, if every pattern you cherish is only your mind's desperate fiction, then what is truly waiting for you in the chaos behind your eyes? Part 11. The end that never ends. You believe in endings. You tell yourself that each chapter closes, that night leads to morning, that death is a door you walk through only once. But endings are illusions, loops that coil back on themselves until you cannot tell where you began. Look at Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, the thought experiment that gnaws at the edges of sanity. Imagine living this life again and again. Every pain, every shame, every secret you tried to bury replayed endlessly. In an infinite cycle, would you scream, or would you pretend, as you do now, that you are free? Consider the psychological concept of the Zeigarnik effect. Your mind clings to unfinished tasks, unresolved moments, until they bleed into your dreams, your quiet hours, your fragile attempts at peace. Even as you lie here, there are open loops in you that will never close, doors you cannot stop staring at in the dark. Look at entropy in physics, the second law that says disorder only grows, that systems decay, that nothing truly resolves but collapses into heat death. And you, desperate to find meaning, build stories atop a universe that is erasing itself in every breath you take. Think of the cyclical myths of ancient cultures, the Ouroboros devouring its own tail, creation and destruction feeding each other, forever. You live inside that serpent, thinking you're walking forward, but the teeth are already at your heels. History offers no solace. Wars declared ended while their seeds wait in silence. Plagues that sleep in the soil for centuries. Unsolved murders that rot in archives while the questions whisper in the dark. Every ending is just the start of another echo. And now, as you lie in the night, letting these truths fold over you like cold waves, your mind circles back to itself, because there is no final word, no last page, no clean conclusion. so tell me, before the dark swallows even this thought, if every ending you've ever believed in is only the start of another loop, then when, exactly, do you think you will ever wake up? Epilogue, the question that devours itself, you are still here. The audio hums on, hours have passed, but you cannot mark them. You think you have journeyed through biases, through paradoxes, through history's darkest mirrors, yet every step was a circle, every truth a shadow eating itself. Consider Gigel's incompleteness theorems, whispered like a spell over mathematics itself. In any system rich enough to describe the world, there will always be truths that cannot be proven. Within it, your mind is that system. Your thoughts are those truths. You will never see the whole, and you will never escape the loop. You reach for finality, but the recursion deepens. You think of Boltzmann's brain, the thought experiment that haunts cosmology. Perhaps you are not even you. Perhaps you are a sudden, random fluctuation in the void, dreaming a life that never was. And when you wake, if you wake, there will be no evidence you ever existed. Every bias we traced together, every experiment, every paradox, each one was another thread pulling you deeper into the labyrinth of yourself. Anchors, blind spots, false patterns, collapsing truths, endless loops. They are not doors out. They are walls closing in. Now listen to your own breath, the faintest rhythm in the dark. You think you hear it. You think it is yours. But even that certainty unravels as the thought folds into itself. If you cannot trust your senses, your memories, your choices, yourself, then what remains to call you at all? And if there is no answer, then why are you still trying to find one? Reverberation, the listener that isn't listening. You have followed me this far, through every corridor, through every fracture, through every quiet tearing of what you thought was real. And still, you wait. You wait as though there is an edge to fall off, a last door to open, a final sound to silence the others. But listen closely, there is no listener. The auditory cortex lights up in response to a voice. Yes, but the voice is not here. These words are shapes on air, electrical storms in your neurons, and even now your brain is rewriting them, folding them into old patterns, feeding them through every bias we've already named. You don't hear me, you hear the version of me that you've built from your own wreckage. Consider the rubber hand illusion, the experiment where a false hand, stroked in time with your hidden real hand, begins to feel like part of you. You feel what is not yours. You believe what cannot be true. Your sense of self is that fragile, that easily betrayed. Think again of the corpus callosotomy patients, half-brains answering questions in contradiction, one drawing, one writing, neither aware of the other. Which one would you call the listener? Which one would you call you? And in the quiet, when you imagine yourself apart from this, apart from everyone, remember the Fregly delusion, a mind convinced that different people are in fact one single entity in disguise. Maybe that's what you've done here, too. Every voice you've ever heard, every thought you've ever held, every word whispered in the dark, was it all one? Was it all you? You believe someone is listening. You believe someone cares enough to explain these things to you. But what if there is no listener, no speaker, only this endless recursion of thought folding in on itself, like a snake devouring its own tongue? The night deepens, the hum of neurons grows louder, and now you must ask yourself, as the last edges of certainty bleed away, if no one is truly listening, then who have I been speaking to all this time inside your head? After image, the dream that dreams, you are still here. Eyes closed, body heavy, mind dissolving, but some stubborn fragment of you still strains to hold on, to make sense of what cannot be held, and now you feel it, don't you? The edges of waking and sleeping fraying into one another until you no longer know which side of the veil you occupy. Think of Thomas Metzinger again, whispering that there is no self, only a model. Now imagine that model dreaming itself, spinning endless versions of itself until the difference between the dreamer and the dreamed is gone. That is what you are doing now. That is what you have always done. Consider the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi, dreaming he was a butterfly, then waking to wonder if he was a butterfly, dreaming he was Zhuangzi. You smile at the paradox in daylight, but in the dark it eats you alive. What if this entire life has been nothing but the afterimage of some other consciousness, some other thing, and you are the insect fluttering in someone else's fractured mind? The brain's default mode network hums even as you sleep, weaving stories from nothing, stitching scraps of memory and bias into shapes that feel real. And when you wake, you tell yourself, that was just a dream. But if every memory is rewritten, every choice predetermined, every truth collapsible, then what exactly separates the dream from what you call reality? Think of the ancient funerary texts, the Egyptians writing maps for the soul to navigate the afterlife, as though words could anchor consciousness beyond the body. You have written such maps for yourself, every plan, every story, every explanation, none of them leading anywhere but back into the labyrinth. And as your breath slows further, and the soft pressure of darkness folds over you, the question curls in your chest like a living thing. If the dream dreams you as much as you dream the dream, then when you wake, how will you know which side of the glass you've risen from, or if you have ever truly awakened at all?